We're live. We're live. We're live. What's going on, everyone?
What up? What up?
Yes, sir. With my dude Isham here on another episode of Grounded. Really diving in to land wholesaling, to land investing, how to flip land, switch the background, all the above, really. So, and we actually we kind of came up with this idea, mostly Isham actually came up with this idea of really making episodes based on our business rather than for those that listen to our wholesaling podcast, which is the Wholesale Elite, where we dive into a lot of mindset and really just, picking the brains of other successful, real estate entrepreneurs. So we really wanted to take the time to have a weekly episode where talk about land, talk about our actual business, which is online investments, and what we do. And because we get a lot of questions about teach us how to value land, how to do this with land,
right.
All this kind of stuff. And so, which I told Isham, I was like, it's a brilliant idea. And so we're excited to really try to, amp this thing up and see how much value we can truly bring to others and see if we can, I don't think there's not a lot of seeing. We know we'll be able to help and provide value to others. And I say that confidently because it's not like we do this as a hobby. This is our full-time business. We live, eat, and breathe land. So speaking of that, that leads us into the topic of this episode, which is we really want to show others, or at least tell others and teach others specifically how to find buyers for land, because it's not a fix and flipper. It's not a buy and hold, portfolio investor. And so I want to dive into this episode and discuss how we find buyers, how we network with builders, what kind of strategies, exit strategies are, builders using, land investors using. And when I say that, people are probably like, strategies? Like what? They just built a house. Actually, there's a lot of different strategies, just as if you're in single family or, residential real estate. And so I'll start off by saying there's a few different types of builders. One being a spec home builder is the first one. A spec home builder is essentially building a house on, a single family home, and they're turning around and listing that on the market. So, just like a flipper would, buys a house, paints it, puts new cabinets, all that fun stuff just to relist it to make a quick profit. That's essentially what a spec home builder is. So when you hear the word, if you're in the business of land like we are, and you hear spec home builder, just know that's essentially equivalent to a fix and flipper. They're building a house just to sell it. Now, there are other types of, technically, there is some spec home builders will build to rent. And so we like to say in our business that there's build to sell and build to rent. Build to rent is essentially a builder will build a spec home, but instead of selling it, they just throw a long-term tenant in it. And so
or short term.
Wow, tongue twister. Or short term. Why? I don't even want to say STR. I'm saying STR for the rest of the show. So STR. Yes. So they'll do stuff like that. But for the most part, 99% of the time, spec home builder is going to sell. So then there's also custom home builders. Custom home builders is not necessarily people that, or at least buyers that we work with in our business. So custom home builders, for those that don't know, typically are building homes specific to one client. They're not building it to sell on the open market to where hoping, someone loves the house and wants to buy it. Usually a custom home builder has a client. That client says, I want pink cabinets and blue carpet. That custom home builder is going to put pink cabinets and blue carpet in that house just for that client. So usually those clients will go to the custom home builders and they already have the land. So that's why we don't really work with custom home builders, because they're not usually looking to buy dirt. Usually the dirt's just brought to them and they're just kind of told what to do and they do it. And get paid accordingly. And then the other main kind of single family residential type of builder is a tract home builder, which is your DR Hortons of the world. Essentially, they're buying large parcels of land. They're doing civil engineering. They're putting roads in. They're installing utilities. They're subdividing these land into little lots, and they're building neighborhoods. So if you hear a tract home builder, that's what they're doing. It could be large scale. It could be very minimal. They could just do a small neighborhood or a big neighborhood. But tract home builders are typically building like full subdivisions from either raw land or land that's entitled already and which that's for a whole nother story or a whole nother episode, is entitlements. So I just wanted to lay that foundation out for basically the type of three main residential builders. Now, there are multifamily developers, there are commercial developers, which all these people you can sell land to. None of them are people that are off limits, essentially. There are also buyers that are regular investors. So people will actually buy land just to hold on to it in hopes that it appreciates. And me and Aishan will be the first to say not all land appreciates like houses do. Some land literally, depending on where it's at, will stay pretty much the same in terms of its value. And so we've actually done transactions and closed on deals where the sellers took massive losses. 20, 30, 40, $50,000 losses on property just because that land never appreciated. They bought it when the market was super hot in 07 before the big turn, and they overpaid. And so now there's anyways, I'm getting off topic. I can't do that. I'm going to stick to what I was saying. So land investors, they'll buy the dirt, hold on to it, hope it appreciates, resell it down the road. There are also people that want to, local neighbors, local people that live in communities around that area. People want to buy dirt just to put a tractor on, just to put, turn into a parking lot, essentially, just to put, like, we're in Florida. So we come across a lot of lots where it's literally an infill lot in the middle of a neighborhood. You would think a home should be built on it, but there's boats parked there, an RV, cars, lawnmowers, tractors, all kinds of stuff. And so people actually buy land for that purpose as well, which makes it, we don't sell too much with them because they're just looking for cheap dirt. But at the same time, they are essentially a potential buyer for one of your deals.
If I could throw this in as well, and you kind of alluded to this, but just to let you know, there's also the neighbor, right? Which she said, local area neighbors love buying the vacant lot next to them because obviously it prevents them from building a house or doing anything, and they can just extend their yard. And so, I mean, some of the first people you probably should consider calling are the neighbors of that lot. So just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Neighbors usually they love to buy the lot next door, just for the reason Isham said. So good contact point. That's usually when people are getting into land, that's the first thing that they're told. Just call the neighbors. And so it's a really good place to start. Most neighbors are for sure going to be interested. So, and obviously that's easy to find. However if you use a skip tracing service, use that skip tracing service to look up the neighbors. Or if you use True People Search, look up the neighbor's address around and search them on True People Search. But I want to get into kind of the nitty gritty, the nuts and the bolts of, again, kind of staying centered around our business model and what we essentially dispo, or who we dispo to, I should say. And so for those that didn't listen or didn't see the first episode that we aired last week, we kind of discussed a little bit about our business model, and that we're not just your average. I shouldn't say your average. We don't do things like most people are taught in land. And so for that reason, our buyers for our deals are very specific, almost pretty niche, because we target niche lots, niche land. And so people ask us, and we've had this asked a lot recently, how do you find builders? Hey, our guy Malachi. What's up, Kai?
Hi.
So how do you find builders? So, or at least how do we find builders? An easy way to start is by Zillow. And so you can go to Zillow, the first thing I do when I'm looking for a new builder is I go to Zillow, which is free. Go to for sale, type in the minimum filter, the minimum year, the 2022. So last, new construction that's most likely no one's ever lived in, that's listed on the market currently. And then I'll either go on True People Search, skip trace it, go to Property Appraiser, whatever method you have defining a number. I'm looking for that LLC who owns that listing that's currently listed, because obviously that deed hasn't transferred over since it's still for sale. So usually those builders are super easy to find. If you can't get in contact with the LLC on that listing, call the agent, call the listing agent. Most likely, more times than not, that listing agent is actually a builder themselves, or they're married to the builder, or they know the builder because they work with them pretty exclusively. A lot of agents will work with builders exclusively, just because those builders provide enough volume to keep that agent happy. And so it's just a win-win for everyone. And so those are just the two quickest ways. The other thing is you could go to sold on Zillow, keep the same filter, 2022, and look up sold new constructions that no one's lived in, and go to property appraiser, or again, however you do it. Now, the thing with the solds is you're going to have to do just a tiny bit more research, because that deeds transfer obviously over to someone else because that house sold. So just make sure you're doing your due diligence in that regard. And it's super easy to find those builders. Other ways is Facebook. I mean, you could use Facebook. They're usually just builder groups in whatever market or state you're in. Contractor groups, even just real estate investing groups. A lot of contractors hang out in real estate investing groups on Facebook, and so those are great ways to network and build relationships with builders, contractors, all the above. Agents will also be your friend in terms of land, because a lot of agents really only, not all, but there's quite a bit of agents that only do land and new construction. So they're very keen. They're really savvy in that market, your specific market, on land deals, on new construction deals, on everything in the know on how to underwrite land and the value of land. And so, utilize agents. And so the other way that we actually look for builders is I Google local spec home builders in X market. If you're in, Phoenix, Arizona, spec home builders in Phoenix, Arizona, Google's literally going to shoot out a list of spec home builders. You make those phone calls. And so I'll get into kind of what my approach is when I call these builders. And so that way everyone has it. But those are just really the quickest methods that we use to find builders. Now, most people don't do this, and I really haven't heard too many people teach this other than one or two other people, but we live and die by the GIS map, our local GIS map. So every county, every city is going to have a local GIS map. Ours allows us to quickly click on a vacant lot or click on a build or whatever it is, and it pops up all the information we need. Not every GIS map is like that, unfortunately, but our GIS map's our friend, because usually the GIS map 2 is the most up to date. Zillow gets all their information from the county. Well, the county gets that information first, so it's usually up to date, way quicker than relying on Zillow for information. And so when I'm looking for builders, I'll get into kind of what I'm looking for and also the conversation that I'm looking to have with that builder, at least on that first call. Because at the end of the day with land, you don't want, you do, but we reverse engineer the whole thing. And we talked about this in our first episode. So if you haven't seen it, watched it, I recommend going to do that, because we talk about how to value land and kind of our whole approach. And so it's phenomenal. So if you haven't done that, go look it up. But anyways, so the main things that we look to have conversations with is I want to know how many builds that builder's using a year. So I'll call that builder up, obviously. Hey, my name's Tanner. I had noticed you had a new construction that's listed over on 123 Main Street. I just wanted to reach out to see if you're looking for any more lots in that neighborhood. Yeah, I am. Okay, awesome. Okay, so, how many builds do you guys do a year? They'll tell you. Some builders are very, small. It's a very small operation. Some are bigger. Isham and our team, our entire team in our company, we don't look for the DR Hortons. And it's easy to find those. It's easy in anyone's market. It's easy to find the gigantic companies. You click on Zillow, you'll put in 2022 sold, and you'll see a big blob of yellow. And you'll be like, oh, there's a lot of new construction right there. Boom, let me click on that. And most likely it's a tract home builder, and all those are built by the same company. The reason we don't go after those is because we simply don't go after large parcels. In order to build a subdivision, you need a large parcel. So since we just do infill lots, we're looking for the more mom and pop builders. We're looking for the people that are doing 5 to really 30 to 40 builds a year, because they usually have a smaller team. They usually have some capital at some regard, but for the most part, their communication's good. You're talking to them directly. You don't have to go through an office. You don't have to talk to an assistant. You can really build that one-on-one relationship. And so we really like to work with smaller builders, just because they seem to be more efficient in communication. They're willing to share information. They're willing to give knowledge, and really help you understand, because at the end of the day, most builders don't have wholesalers bringing them deals. Most builders don't have in-house acquisition teams. So all these builders, or at least most of them, are having to go out on the MLS themselves. They're having to sit up at night, go to Zillow, see what lots are listed, and reach out to those agents. And obviously, builders are busy. They don't have a lot. They can't spend hours on a day like a lot of us do looking for opportunity. And so they simply don't have enough leads for them coming in to justify their business, or they struggle sometimes with producing enough job opportunity to keep their contractors happy, to keep their teams happy. Because just like fix and flippers, for those that are flipping or wholesaling residential property, and you have good relationship with flippers, dang well that flippers always complain about, I need another deal, because they don't want to be stagnant and not have anything that their contractors can work on. Because what do those contractors do if they don't have an opportunity? They go find one with another flipper, and then they may lose out on. It's the same thing with builders. Builders are the exact same way. So builders are always looking for land. And so for that reason, again, they don't have most in-house teams, AKA that's where the wholesalers, can dominate the industry, or at least dominate their market in regards to land. We've wholesaled more land than you think to builders that have never bought from wholesalers. They will tell us, you're the first assignment we've ever done. You're the first wholesalers we bought from. And then I remember specifically, I had a conversation with one of our builders not too long ago, and he was in shock that whenever he asked, he knew as a wholesaler, he knew our company was wholesaling land. He straight up asked us, he goes, wait, you guys only wholesale land? And we go, yeah. And he goes, you guys have been who I've been looking for. And so that's why there's a massive opportunity in there and in our realm, in our niche. But at the same time, it's incredible. And so I don't want to go too much into that, but in terms of builders, so the other things I like to ask them outside of how many builds they do a year, is how's their financing? Do they use construction loans? Are they using private capital? Are they using their own capital? The reason those go into effect when I'm asking that is just so I know there's transparency, and I also know I can expect if someone needs a construction loan. We have builders that only use construction loans from banks. I know that their time that they're going to need to give us an answer on something, at least to officially commit to something, is 3 days to a week. Because they have to go to their bank. The bank has to approve the deal and all kinds of stuff to approve the plans, rather than someone that's building cash straight out of pocket. I can expect, if I'm going to work with this person, that, they're going to get back to us quickly and efficiently. Other thing I like to ask is, do they prefer to buy land with utilities available, or are they afraid to bring on utilities, or afraid to, clear a lot? Because some builders, honestly, and it seems very minimal, but I've talked to some builders where they don't want to deal with clearing a lot. They don't mind the utilities, but they don't want to clear the lot. It's just an extra expense. It's extra time. They have to haul that stuff somewhere. They just don't want to deal with it. And so these are all little things I like to ask. The biggest questions I like to ask builders is, what's your build cost? I want to know your price per square foot, if they know it. Some builders honestly don't know it. I get usually one of three answers, which is, my build cost is X amount of dollars per square foot. My wife knows it, I don't, or I straight up don't even know it. And all three are fine. But for our business model, we really like to understand what the builders are building and what's their build cost, because we actually factor that into our offers. We don't do percent-based offers, as most wholesalers and most investors are, they hear all the time, offer 20% of resale value. We don't do that because it's skewed in our market. We would get dominated, honestly. But the other thing I like to ask is, how many plans do you guys use? Are you guys looking to basically pick up a plan? And by plan, I mean build plans. So, there's architectural fees and all that kind of stuff. And so are you looking to use that plan on a different lot? Or do you have other plans? Are you looking to build the same house literally over and over and over and over again? Or do you mix it up? Do you build it based on the lot itself? More often than not, most builders will actually use the same plans over and over and over and over again. Why? Because it's efficient. It costs money to get plans drawn up. It's about $1 to $2 a square foot for architectural fees. And so, if you're building a 2,000 square foot house in your market, it's $2 a square foot. That's $4,000 on a ballpark on average just to get plans drawn up, right? That factors in to the overall cost that the builder has to look at when factoring in, do I want this lot or not? And so all these little things add up. The best response you can get, honestly, is I use one plan over and over and over again, because they're going to give you their build cost. They're going to give you all the information, and their decision making is going to be the quickest. But we work with builders that use 3 plans, and they'll share those plans with us. Not the plans itself, but they share, hey, it's X amount of square feet, it cost me this much to build, this many bed and bath. And so when we run comps, when we're looking at land deals, I know when I look at new construction in that area, if my builder's plan is 2,000 square feet, costs them $150 a square foot to build, it's a 3-bed, 2-bath, I'm going to go look for new construction that's 2,000 square feet, 3-bed, 2-bath. And if they're all selling for about $550,000, it's a golden ticket, because I know exactly what that property is probably going to resell for. And then I just reverse engineer that, and that's how we get our offer. Before I move on, because I'm just talking my ear off, Aisham, do you have anything you want to add or ask me, or do you have anything that comes to mind that I may be missing?
Yeah, well, about 20 minutes ago, you said something,
Okay, awesome.
and
Cool.
no, I mean, dude, you're crushing it. There's a lot of things that I could chip in and add, but I'm just gonna let you go. I will say this. For those of you who are like me, visual people and people that kind of need to understand what this is, if you want Tanner to send a document that has kind of the steps of what's going on, all the stuff that he's mentioning, throw a comment in Facebook, YouTube, or whatever. Get some engagement on there. Let us know what you guys would like. What would help you, because the last thing that we're going to do is put together this document for one person, or put together this like, so let us know what would help you guys in your business. And the easiest way to do that, I mean, I can say smash the like button, subscribe, all that stuff, but we're not going to know. I mean, we would know if you subscribed. So please subscribe. But throw it in the comments, throw it in wherever, but let us know what you'd like, and we'll get that for you.
And another thing I want to add, and why it's fresh on my brain, I don't mean to jump straight off from Isham. Ask the builders if they use a preferred title company. When you're on the phone with them and you bring them a deal, ask if they use a preferred title company. Because we've had some builders where they only work with one title company, regardless if it's yours, if it's someone else's. So we've actually had to switch over title companies in the middle of a transaction just because that builder, has, for whatever reason, a love affair with that certain title company.
And shout out, by the way, shout out to Setco Services in the Florida Panhandle. Setco crushes it. They've been our title company since day one. Kai's on right now, the live. Kai, Holly, Dylan, the squad there, George. I mean, guys, I'll tell you this much. When I first got started, by the way, I did not title companies scared the shit out of me. Like I didn't know what they were. I didn't know how to use them properly. I knew we kind of needed to use them, but people are like, hey, reach out to, your title company. And I'm like, oh God, they're scary people. Guys, these are normal people. These are regular people just like you and I. I mean, they really are. They're regular people. Kai is the most down-to-earth dude. Holly is a sweetheart. She's been doing title work for like 20 years. Dylan's amazing, just the best customer service ever. So I know I'm blowing our title company up, Setco. They're obviously very investor friendly, but they're our title company. So have that same relationship with your title company. For real, get to know them. You should be sending them deals, right? If you're sending them deals, they'll know who you are. We love our Setco team, and they love us as well, because we send them deals and they help us execute our deals flawlessly. So just shout out to the Setco team.
No, that's a good point. And I actually had this conversation with someone else yesterday. They were asking me how do I pick a title company, and how do I build the relationship with the right title company? And I'm not going to go on a whole rabbit hole of this, but I just simply said, and it adds to what Isham was saying, by doing deals simply is going to build a relationship organically, but take the extra time to reach out to them, talk to them. Like Isham said, they're humans. They're not robots behind a computer. They're not big. They're
normal people. They got families. They pay bills. I think sometimes it's hard to keep that stuff in perspective. We get overwhelmed, or we get insecure about certain things, and you really have to understand that those people are normal people. Just like when I'm talking to sellers, there's a lot of times where they just think I'm just a normal, another robot calling. And I have to tell them, hey, look, George, before you hang up, look me up on Facebook. I'm a normal person. I've got a family. I've got kids. Like, please do, relate. And so they really are normal people. But I did want to give a quick shout out to Lady and the Chef. Great content. I love Tanner's checklist for builders. I'm new in the land wholesale space. Welcome. That's awesome. Excited to continue learning. That's awesome. That is awesome, Lady and the Chef. I'm not sure if you're Lady or the Chef or both, but thank you for joining us, and we will definitely get that info out. So absolutely, just stay tuned. We'll probably post it on our Wholesale Elite Facebook page.
Yeah, I would love. If you had any other questions outside of the checklist, I would, feel free to throw them in, and we can get them answered on this episode. Anyways, back to the main topic, and if anyone needs me to change or adjust, please tell me. But anyways, builders. So the best thing that we found when we're working with our builders is, just like the title company, is they're humans. Most builders, again, we work with very, I don't want to say smaller builders. Some of these builders that we work with, have companies. They have legit companies, employees, and all kinds of things. But at the same time, they're human. So take the time to build that relationship with them. Take the time to understand what they like, what they don't like. And I'm not talking like lovey-dovey stuff like, what kind of donut do you like? Or do you like a Ford or a Chevy? Like, I'm not talking that stuff, but just get to know them on a personal basis, because they're going to be your best friend. I've reached out to a lot of our builders and a lot of deals that we've been working on where there's stuff I just didn't know. I couldn't find online. I couldn't find asking others questions. And so, by having those relationships in that network, it allowed me to make one quick phone call and get something answered, or at least get pointed in a direction of where I could get that answered. We've had builders send us, septic guys, like very specific septic guys. And so I've had to call those guys and ask questions of them. And I don't want to speak too much, because I also did residential, and I know Isham did too, residential real estate. But the tight knit, and I feel like almost builders alone is a community. I feel like land and construction alone is a community. It's like everyone knows everyone. And so I'll just tell another really quick story just to kind of paint the picture. Is we were marketing one of our deals to one of our builders, and then a week goes by. I had two builders that we have really good relationships with. They both are like, oh, we like the lot, da 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 da. Well, that week goes by and I follow up with them and all that. Well, one of them calls me. He's like, hey, I just got out of lunch with so-and-so. He actually told me you sent him the deal as well. And then we all started laughing. So basically what happened was they went to lunch as two builders that are friends, and I was the middleman, and our company and our deal was the topic of conversation. And they thought it was funny because we had reached out to both of them. So the only reason I wanted to say that is just to paint the picture that literally it's a tight-knit community. And so if you're looking to get into land, don't be intimidated by people that are building homes. I almost get more intimidated by flippers because they seem a lot more hard-nosed. Builders, to be honest with you, they're cool people. They're just people. Anyways, to the nuts and bolts of things.
Hey, before you jump in, and I'm glad you said that, because I feel like a lot of people, especially, if you're not some like hammer swinging like maintenance guy who's super crafty, you may be a little intimidated, right? Calling builders, especially if these guys own a company and they build houses for a living. Like, why would they want to talk to me? I'm just this little wholesaler that has a lot or has an idea and whatnot. Please let me just engage with you guys and let you know that this fear that you have in your head right now it's valid. It's just not accurate. It's not. I thought the same thing. I really did. And then I got on the phone with builders. I'm like, these guys, they're normal people. They're not these. Well, some of them. Every now and again, you'll get a really cocky one. But that's fine. You don't got to do business with them. That's the beauty of what we do. We choose who we do business with. And so the majority of them there's no issues. There's no, tell me your buy box, or I don't have time for this. They love it. They really do. They enjoy, because who else are they going to get land from? they're going to get land from their friend who just, is like, hey, I got an extra plot of land over here that I can assign to you. It's either that or it's a real estate agent where they're going to have to pay commissions, a lot of the times they do. Or, they're just having to find, it's not easy for them. And so when we, provide the service that we do, you're going to be blown away to realize that builders are like, where have you guys been our whole life? Like, this is crazy. So it's kind of why we stayed focused on our niche where we are, and we're not buying rural farmland and stuff like that. We're building stuff to where we've got buyers. Before we even secure a contract, we already know who we're selling that to. We already know. So just keep that in mind. It's not scary talking to builders. Just go out there and do it. Sure, you may get one that's gruff or has a bad day or whatever. But look, as long as you're not calling to waste their time, practice a little bit. Have a little bit of insight into the verbiage. You know what I mean? Like, sound like you know what you're talking about. That way you're not wasting your time. Don't overthink this. There's no special word you have to use or whatever. But like Tanner said, one of the first questions to ask them is, hey, are you track or custom? Are you a track home builder or a custom home builder? Using verbiage like, you don't have to say, are you a track home builder or a custom home builder? Dead giveaway, ring, ring, ring. This person they're not in it. Like, why would you say home builder? You're obviously calling them. So stuff like that, just be normal. Don't overthink it. But just call. Like, they're fun people to talk to. And I have a feeling that you will enjoy this. And Tanner, before I go back to you, I want to give these guys one more piece of gold that I don't think you mentioned. So where to find builders, right? Like Tanner said, you can go on Zillow. You can just look for the new construction, right? In any area, just, 2022, filter it out. Boom, there's new construction. Go skip trace those, or go pull up those addresses, pop them into a property appraiser site. It'll tell you who sold it. I could pull it up and share screen, but I won't do it now. But that's the way. There's all kinds of ways, right? Be creative. You're driving by, you see someone building a house, write down that number, go through, just Google. Like Tanner said, the most easiest way is just to Google, spec home builders near me. Now, with that being said, there's another golden resource that Tanner, I'm ashamed of you for not telling the good people of the wholesale elite world. But you didn't mention the Builders Association, which you would probably find by Googling it. But guys, every county typically, is it county, right, Tanner? Or is it city?
It's county, and it's usually the county based. Okay.
Usually every county has a Builders Association. So if you not all, yeah. So if you Google such and such Builders Association, the little podunk counties here in Florida have them. So if you're in a market that is somewhat reasonable and is doing business, you should have a Builders Association. Gold. Gold. You'll pull that up. I was helping a guy yesterday who's in Virginia. He had his first land deal. He's like, how do I find? We pulled up the Builders Association. 80 contacts, 80 builders right there, phone numbers, names of the company owner, names of their company, website, all that info. So it's so easy. It's not easier than houses. It's different. But when it comes to builders, don't sweat that. Seriously, just call them. Way more challenging talking to sellers of the land. Builders, that's the easy part. So go get some builders first.
Sorry. Yeah. And I just want to, piggyback on something you said a second ago, which was, on my first call with builders, I don't like to waste their time. Like Isham said, respect their time. And so I like to ask questions that's going to get answers, but I don't want to overstep my boundaries and ask too in-depth questions, which is why I ask the simple ones. What's your build cost? Do you want to bring utilities onto a lot? Do you mind? All that kind of stuff. And that way I can kind of spend about 2 minutes on the first phone call, understanding what that builder is looking for. And then, now I have just a general basic. I may not know everything, and you don't need to know everything. And so now when we do have a deal or something in an area of where he wants, send that to him. And that's where you really start learning your builders, is when you start bringing them deals, because they'll tell you real quick why something doesn't work.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to add to that what Isham said. Just don't waste their time. But again, most of the time they'll talk too. So Absolutely. You don't have to do much talking for the most part.
What questions to ask, Tanner? I know you said this, but I just wanted to say, just in case new people join, if you just joined and you heard Tanner say that, hey, I call these builders and I ask them these certain amount of questions, but don't ask them too many questions because whatnot. So I would think the question would be, so what do we ask them? What's the information that we need to get? If you want that, guys, send us a comment. I'm telling you, we're not going to put this together for one or two people. Send us a comment. Let us know. We'll put that together. We'll put it on the page. But just let us know again what you're wanting. Go ahead, dude.
Yeah. And I mean, I'll just put like 3 questions. So if you're joined late or you're listening later, just the 3 questions I always ask is, what's your build cost? It's the price per square foot. How many builds are you doing a year? And what areas are you building? And what areas are you avoiding? A lot of builders are very picky on what areas because their builds usually sell in the same price range. Now, there are a lot more questions where we got enough comments essentially to where we put something together. I would go into way more depth on that stuff and more specific questions to help out. But those are that's really the general basics of what information I'm trying to get on the first call at least. Now going back to finding builders, because I know that's actually, let me answer Lady and the Chef question right here. So if a buyer falls through, have you ever assigned a lot to a We Buy Land company?
Great question, by the way.
It is a great question. The answer for us is no. And I don't say that like hockey. I say that as in no, because usually those We Buy Land companies are doing exactly what you're trying to do. And sure, you may be able to assign that deal last minute to them because they have a way larger buyer base, right? So you may be able to make a few thousand off of them, and then they're going to turn around and make 20,000 off of it. But we have found in our market, 1, there's not a lot of We Buy Land companies, and 2, we just don't really work with them because they're doing exactly what we're doing. And so it just never really has penciled out numbers wise to where it made a lot of sense. Because we have a minimum threshold in our company of assignment fees. Like we don't go under 10,000. And so we will, if push comes to shove and we know we just need to get the deal moved. But other than that, 10,000 is our minimum. So that's why we don't really work with We Buy Land companies.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, please.
So I know you asked us, Lady and the Chef, if a buyer falls through, do you ever, hey, what's up, Zero Deal? You said, do you ever assign? So like Tanner said, to answer your question, no, we don't. But if you've got like a rural lot or something like that, and you had a buyer on it and your buyer fell through, I would do whatever it took to disposition that deal. So absolutely. If I could call We Buy Land company, now I'm going to be very transparent with them. If I do need to do the seller a solid and get this thing sold, I'm going to be as transparent as humanly possible with them, let them know the deal, find out what their process is for acquiring this contract that I'm considering assigning. Find out if they're okay with, using this title company, then sure. I mean, whoever's willing to step to the table and wave that cash is a buyer, whether they're a We Buy Land company or some rando or your uncle or whoever. Yeah, if you got the money, we'll sell you the deal. But just make sure for the sake of your seller that this is a legit, buyer and can actually perform. So just do a little vetting. But yeah, absolutely, I would definitely sell to a We Buy Land company in that scenario. But us in our business, we don't, because again, we don't cancel contracts. We have them. They're sold when they get inked up. So, but go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to add, like I should say, make sure you vet those companies. Because 9 out of 10 times they're either another wholesale company or something fishy, and not fishy in a bad way. Just, they're not the actual end buyer. And a way to vet those companies is I've asked wholesalers in the past that have reached out to me about deals. Hey, what title company do you typically like to use? And then if they tell you, what do? You call that title company and you ask, hey, have you worked with XYZ company before? Yeah, we have. Do they typically assign deals or do they typically buy? Or you can simply ask that title company, or not title company, ask that company, We Buy Land or whatever, hey, what's some recent transaction you guys have closed on? And see if they're on the HUD, see if they're on the deed. And those are just really quick ways to kind of vet out. And don't be afraid to ask because I know some wholesalers, when they're first getting started, get scared to ask other wholesalers, are you planning on assigning this deal? They kind of just want to be blind and be like, yeah, sure. I just want the deal done. Please be an end buyer. But no, true. just ask, because if they're in the business and they're a good company, they shouldn't be afraid of telling you that they're going to assign it, because they have enough confidence in performing on that contract. And so just ask those straight up front questions, and get down to the nitty gritty with them.
Right.
And if they're shady, you'll know. It's usually pretty evident. And don't work with shady people. That's my tip of the day. But I wanted to kind of jump back to how to find buyers. And something that came to mind was, I mentioned agents, reach out to agents, and I mentioned reaching out to the buyers. Always, 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 and this is from personal experience, always reach out to the buyers first. We love agents. We work with agents. We have no problem working with agents. But here's some of the information that I'm about to spill that has happened somewhat recently. Nothing bad, but you're most likely going to have to cut in an agent if you don't go to the buyer first. We use a dispo agent, and honestly, she's incredible. So I will continue to use her. But
Shout out Holly.
Shout out Holly. There's another agent that I was trying to dispo a deal to, and I contacted her builder. And as I mentioned earlier in the episode, a lot of builders and agents have exclusive relationships. They work really closely together. So I had reached out. I had talked to this agent multiple times over the past couple months about deals, so on and so forth. And so I had reached out to a builder of hers. And I'll admit it live right now. I kind of knew it was one of her builders, but I wasn't too sure, but I kind of knew. And so I had reached out to that builder, send him the deal, and I get a phone call like 10 minutes later from that agent. Hey Tanner, did you reach out to one of my builders? He said you reached out to him about a deal. And I was like, oh crap. Is that one of yours? Oh, wow. That's crazy. It's small world, that type of thing. And so that's the only reason I say reach out to the buyers first. If you can't get a hold of the buyer, or the builder, I should say, call the agent. They're great to work with. I have no bad blood with any agents yet. And so work with them. Now, how to structure deals with agents, because I know we get that. I get that a lot. How do you bring in an agent on a transaction? And this could go for really not just land, but residential wholesaling. But what we do is we offer basically two methods. Now, with one of our agents, aka Holly, we pay her 5% of every deal for her bringing the builder. And again, because she works exclusively with the two specific builders that we use. And so we have to go through her out of respect. But now, how to structure? What we usually do is when we market to an agent, we simply say, just add your fee on top, plain and simple. And that way you're setting that expectation to an agent. Because when I was first getting into the business, first assigning land deals and doing all the fun stuff, a lot of agents will ask, well, how do I get paid? Are you paying me? Do I get a commission? Do I get a fee? And it created like clutter in my brain. I'm like, oh God, what do I say when I'm on the phone with these people now? Now I expect that to be a question that agents are going to ask me. So we straight up tell them, hey, add your fee on top of ours. And 99.9% of the time, these agents are just trying to make an extra quick buck because they know they're going to get the listing on the construction. But to get your deal sold, you have to if you have to share the wealth, share the wealth. Another way to do it is set a flat fee. Tell the agent, hey, I'll pay you $2,000 if you bring the builder. $2,000 is more than what most agents are going to make on land deals. If you're doing basic infill lots that are in like the 30 to 60,000, $2,000 to them is like $100,000. Just because there's not a lot of value in those type of land deals. Now, if you're getting the luxury lots, totally different. But that's the three methods. Tell the agent to add their fee on top. Do a flat fee. Just tell the agent straight up, hey, I'll give you $2,000 or $1,500 or $3,000, whatever you want to do, whatever you decide. Or work out a percent commission based on the purchase price, which again is what we do with one of our disposition agents that we work with.
Hey, can I jump in real quick?
Please.
I just thought of something. I don't want to give you guys too much game, and it's not from a scarcity mindset, but it's just something I thought about, and I was like, oh, this is also something you can do with agents. So something we did on a deal recently is, look, if you're a real estate agent, first of all, I love agents. Like, I know for whatever weird reason, agents, they kind of get shit on in the wholesale agent community, right? But we're both doing the same thing, essentially. We're both trying to provide a service for a client, and make some money in the meantime. And so agents just think they know more than we do. But with that being said, I love agents. I really do. And I want them to get paid. I want them to earn a living. And most importantly, I want them to look at investors in a positive light. That's like the most important thing for me with agents. So we just had a deal recently where we called the seller, and the seller was like, I just went under contract with an agent. We're like, what? Like when? He's like, this morning. We're like, oh no, like, oh, bummer. Okay, well, who's the agent? And so we got in touch with the agent, and we said, we found out luckily that the agent, there weren't like a seasoned pro or anything. They're fairly new. And so we got in touch with them and we said, hey, look, call us back and let us know the number that you're planning on listing that at, right? Before you list it, just let us know the number you're listing that at. So she did that. She hit us back over the weekend and said, hey, here's the number that we're at. I want to say it was like 200,000 or something like that for just the land. And we said, great. We're not at 200,000. We don't want to buy it at 200,000. You're pricing it for retail, but that's great. That's great that I know that you're listing this at 200,000. We need this at, let's say 150. We need it at 150, right? Now, here's the thing, guys, think about this. If you're an agent, right, and you're getting paid commission, if you go from selling this house at 200,000 to selling this at 150, you're losing money. Like you're not. So why would that incentivize you to talk your seller down 50 grand to talk your paycheck down? Like that doesn't make any sense, right? And so the reason why we did what we did was because that didn't make sense. And so we said, hey, look, let us know what you're planning to lock this thing up at. When she said 200,000, we're like, okay, that's reasonable for a retail price. We said, look, yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what we expected. That's what we were hoping she would have said. We said, perfect. Look, here's what we'll do. We will pay you your commission at 200,000, right? So like if you were to sell this at 200,000, that's how much you'd make. But we don't want to pay 200,000. Here's the number that we want to pay. If you can get the seller to agree to this number, you got the 200,000 commission, right? So it's just like a little bit more money for us to pay out, but we got a $50,000 discount for that. And we didn't disincentivize them. We actually incentivized them. They were making more. And so just something to keep in mind. Sorry, Tanner. I know.
No, you're good. No, it's a good point. Yeah, that's the thing we're working with agents. And again, this can go for not just land, but residential.
Shout out, lady and chef. Sorry. I know
agents just want to know they're getting paid. That's all they care about. They just want to know, no matter who buys it, no matter what the transaction looks like, at the end of the day, that they're making money. Make sure you're affirming that, you're confirming that, hey, we are going to make sure you get your bread, your bag, your dollars, all the above. And so as long as you do that, agents are going to want to work with you. Again, our dispo agent, I can send her a text now. She has zero. She used to ask me 1,000 questions. Like literally, I used to have to go through the ringer just to have her even send the deal to a buyer. Now I literally I don't have to send like almost any information. I can send an address and a price, and she gets an answer to me within 24 hours and says, let's move forward. And so the reason that is because over time she knows she gets paid. We've paid her on every deal. And she knows that we perform. And so if you can put those two things together with an agent, you're going to build a very good relationship with them. So utilize them and utilize them.
Absolutely.
Because again, agents work with a lot of builders. And so I really want to just paint the overall picture, I guess, really just hound into everyone's brains that ask builders simple questions. Just like when you're going to, for those that are listening and you go to fix and flippers, you go to buy and hold investors, the questions you ask them when you have a deal in hand, you're not, especially if you're a bit newer, unless you're super experienced and savvy, you're not just going to them asking basic questions. But how do you start building a relationship with people? You don't take a girl on a first date and start asking her, what she wants to name her kids and by the age of 3, what sport she wants her kids to play. You don't ask that stuff. Why? Because it's super detailed. It's super personal. And so think of, when you're going into a relationship with a builder, a buyer, an investor, same thing, same concept. When you go on first dates, what do? You usually ask basic questions. Why? You want to break down walls. You want to just get to know someone on a very basic level. And then, you can kind of feel out what they enjoy, what they don't enjoy, and then go from there. And so same thing when you're having conversations with these builders.
Tanner, let me ask you, what's a question that they should probably, like, what's an example of something that they should avoid asking because maybe they don't know it's detailed or it's too personal, but it kind of is in the builder world?
Yeah, zoning. Just don't go to a builder and be like, "Do you buy on R2 zones? Do you only buy?" And again, that's not as basic, but it's a simple question that because most of the time, like say you're doing on market land and you go look at a listing, most of the time that zoning, the agent's gonna have the zoning and listing. So don't try to overcomplicate it. So like I guess basic questions to avoid. Wow.
How many build plans they have? Is that a good one?
No, I don't think that's a bad one. Just because unless you start digging into it, how many bedrooms are they? How many accent walls are you putting in there? Do you have a farm sink? Like when you start getting into super nitty gritty stuff, the builder you lose them. And so if you can just ask, like I said, the super basic fundamental questions, build cost. Do you buy in this area? What areas do you avoid? Do you use one plan or do you use multiple? Which is all that. Hopefully that someone answered it. I have a hard time thinking of a bad question to ask a builder just because I feel like you really can't. And if you do, you'll learn from it because you'll know. But that actually wants to lead me into one of the last things I want to talk about is I mentioned very early on in the episode about exit strategies for builders. Build to rent, build to sell. And so with the market, as if you're in this industry full time or even as a hobby or part time, you understand that the real estate market in general is shifting, right? Interest rates are going up. Banks are kind of tightening their, and not lending out money like they used to. All these things factor into what builders are having to go through right now at this very minute. So the reason I bring that up is a lot of builders right now are factoring in build to rent situations over build to sell. And so if you're in a market specifically, usually a bigger market, or at least a suburb of a bigger market, where short-term rentals are, relevant, if rental properties are relevant, that's honestly a good area to start in your market for new construction. And talking to builders, because a lot of builders are pivoting since interest rates are going up. They're having a hard time selling some of these homes that are 500, 600, 700,000 because it doesn't appeal to a first-time home buyer. Which is the other thing I wanted to mention is our bread and butter for the most part is like resale values of new construction from 300 to 500 in that range. And so we really don't like to be in areas, even though there's a lot of opportunity. We don't really like to be in areas where homes are selling for 200 to 250. Because in our market, that usually means it's not the best area. And so for that reason, there's not a lot of builders in that market.
Now that's Tanner, that dollar amount that you just threw out is very specific. You said 300 to 500,000 as far as the price for the new home that's sold in that area. What if they live in LA or something like that? You know what I mean? What if their market isn't our price point? What do you use to determine the average number?
So it's a great question. So in order to determine if you're local in your market or you've been around your market, you're going to know what a middle-class home is. You're going to know what you're just going to know what the middle income is. And so one way to do that is by doing market research. Google median household income or median home sale price of your market. And if it's LA, it could be 800,000 is like a dumpster fire. And so if 1.1 is the median, price range, then that's where we like to be. We like to be where it appeals to a very large variety of end users, because we don't think of deals from wholesalers' perspective. We think all the way from a builder's perspective, which is what makes our model and our company so unique. And so we're looking at land deals just as a builder would. Okay, if I build something here, what's it going to sell for? What issues am I running into? Is this a good area? Am I going to have to worry about materials and construction stuff getting stolen on the job site? And I say that like a joke, but in reality, that's a common theme that builders have to deal with. And so, which is why a lot of builders, you don't go into bad neighborhoods in most areas and you find a lot of builders. there are some. We do deals in rough areas. There are builders that want to build affordable housing, and so which is phenomenal. But those builders know the risk and they're willing to take it. And usually those builders that are building in affordable housing stick in affordable housing. I don't even know if I know a builder that does affordable housing and then does some kind of $500,000-$600,000
right.
Usually they stay in that lane. And like I was saying earlier in the episode, is most builders stick to their price range, what they're extremely comfortable with. And so most of our builders are 300 to 500 on resale value, meaning once they build that house, it's going to sell for 300,000 to 500,000. Again, because that appeals to a first-time home buyer, which is usually the biggest buyer base. And so they want to appeal to that because builders don't want to sit on properties. Once it goes up construction and it sits on the market, builders, if they're using construction loans, if they're using a lender, even sometimes private capital, guess what they're doing? They're paying interest on that. Meaning every month that property sits still and does not sell on the market, they're losing money. They have to pay that interest. They have to pay whatever terms they work out with the lender, XYZ. And so again, same thing as residential. So if you're wholesaling residential property and you're familiar with fix and flips, you're going to be a dog in land. Now, determining how to value land there's two different methods, which is the offer, percent-based offer and builder-based offer. And we use the builder-based offer method. And so in last episode, we talked a lot more about that. So if you missed that, go to the YouTube or go to Wholesale Elite Podcast on Spotify, Apple, whatever you listen to, and you'll see a grounded episode. And it's the very first one from last week. And so if you're looking how to learn how to or value land or learn a little bit more what I was talking about with the percent-based versus the builder-based model, go listen to that episode because we dive a lot more into it.
Heck yeah.
Outside of that, I like to say the scene has ended or whatever it's called. I'm sure I've missed out on a lot of stuff. And so that's why it's important to leave comments. If there's anything that you want specifically answered, leave a comment. And so that way we can answer that question for you and get it answered and, assist in any way possible. Because at the end of the day, like Aisha was saying also, we don't mind, but we want to be able to answer questions that's going to help a large group of people. And so if you have a very specific question, please leave a comment. We'll answer it. Don't feel like you can't. But if you have a question that's very vague, or not vague, but very broad, and that could appease to a lot of people, we're going to answer those and probably have it on the show. So
come on, bring your questions, guys. Post them, do whatever you want, because at some point we're going to look at that question and we're going to answer it. So whether we do it on the show live as like our main topic, or whether we bring it up later that, hey, this question got brought in last week and it's a really good one, blah, 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 we'll answer it, right? Or whether you're live right now and you throw it up, we'll pop it on the screen and answer it. So we need your questions. We want to know what you guys want to learn. We know what we've learned over the past, 7-8 months, and it's been a lot. Guys, again, just a caveat. We are not currently the experts in land right now. We just probably know more than you at this point. That's kind of where we're at. But just land's our thing. That's all we do. It's literally all we do. We do 0 properties, and it's all we've done for a while now. 7-8 months. And we do it 6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week. So we are in this land game. Like we know our stuff. We're super excited to do this. Like I said, this is something we put out there for free. This is something that we're going to continue to put out there for free. We have no idea or no future plans on creating a course or charging anyone for any of this. Like, why? There's plenty of info out there. And so we just want to kind of condense and give you very specialized information. So that's exciting. I know, Tanner, you're like foaming at the mouth to get to this question, but I'll say this one thing real quick. Guys, like Tanner said, last week was how to determine value, right? That's what we did last week. This week, the focus was how to find buyers, right? Next week, I want to jump in the acquisition side because that's where I live. That's my world. Tanner's in the dispo side. So Tanner's a G at finding buyers and finding and building those relationships and evaluating deals, underwriting deals. He loves that stuff. He's really good at it. On the acquisition side though, right? Acquiring the deal. I go direct to seller. We go direct to seller in our approach. So we're going to talk all about that next week. Next week, it's my turn to kind of be put on the hot seat, and Tanner and I will definitely fill you guys in on that. And so Lemarius Thomas asks, put it back up. I have been speaking with a lot of big buyers, DR Horton, etc. So these are big developers, but it's hard to get to their acquisition guys. Do you have any advice?
Don't use DR Horton. No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, I know a few other land wholesalers that, have relationships with these bigger buyers. DR Horton, by the way, guys, is, if you don't know, and they're not really relevant in your market, just know they are massive. In our market, seems like they're taking over. Every corner, every crevice of our market there's a DR Horton neighborhood going up. But anyways, back to your question. My advice is, I would love to know who your contact is if you're speaking with someone at DR Horton. Is it a receptionist? Did you call the main office? And I don't say that in a bad way, just out of curiosity. I mean, who are you talking with at DR Horton, or do you have any connection with anyone at DR Horton? So my advice, though, for the acquisition guys, man, is keep plugging. I mean, I know it's super basic and you're like probably rolling your eyes, but really though, I mean, you got to, for companies like DR Horton, you have to bug the absolute shit out of them. I mean, drive them up the wall, email, call, text. Let them know you're serious, because companies like DR Horton get calls every single day from hundreds of, probably thousands of people. And so in order to get a hold of someone, you have to plug. I mean, there are agents out there. Call agents. There's a lot of DR Horton neighborhoods, and apparently there's DR Horton where you're at. So call the listing agents that work for DR Horton, and you'll see them on DR Horton, properties that have sold, or DR Horton properties that are for sale. And how do you know they're a DR Horton agent? Is when you go to Zillow and you scroll down to see who the agent is, it literally will say like DR Horton Real Estate, and I'll have DR Horton's logo under, instead of Keller Williams, instead of all this, it'll literally say DR Horton. So call them up and ask, hey, how can I get in touch with someone? Are you a straight connect that I can talk to? We have a land deal that we're looking to move, and I wanted to see if DR Horton and you guys would be interested. That's the best way, in my opinion, that your best shot, at least. And I can't speak from any experience, because I don't call DR Horton. I don't try to contact them. But that's the best thing that would come to mind. And maybe the quickest way to get a hold of someone, or at least get some form of answer or direction to go from there.
Lemarius, if I can chime in too, because I know you're asking a specific question, but I think a lot of the times there's maybe an unasked question. And so I'm assuming that you have a big lot, right? Hopefully it's not just a single, quarter acre infill lot. I'm assuming you came across a big lot, and so you're looking for a developer to potentially purchase that big lot. There's way more out there than DR Horton. There's a lot of developers out there. My agent that we're buying a house right now, we're moving. My agent's husband's a developer. He's building a big ass neighborhood right now. You'd never heard of him, So there's plenty of developers out there. DR Horton, it's almost like, it's like saying, gosh, how do I sell a deal to Keegley or something like that? And that's a bad example, because people sell deals to Keegley all the time, but they're a big company. DR Horton actually has their own internal acquisition department. So they have their own people in their company that are cold calling leads and getting big plots of land. And so I'm not saying that to discourage you by any means. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Like Tanner said, get relentless about contacting DR Horton, but contact ER Horton too, and GR Horton, and reach out to other people. Don't just keep calling DR Horton and I'm going to be fanatical, about getting, because you may even get in, you find the end and they're like, no, thank you. And you've spent, a month trying to get into DR Horton. So I'm sure that, that's not what you were thinking, or that's not what you're doing. But to anyone who is, if you've heard of a big developer and you're like, oh gosh, how do I sell my land to this big developer? Hit us up. Let us know where you're at. Bring that to next week's Wednesday, every Wednesday at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock PM. Eastern. Yeah, 4 o'clock, 1 o'clock PM Pacific, 4 o'clock Eastern. Yeah.
I do want to add this real quick for Lemarius. I hope I'm saying your name right. Go to Bigger Pockets, like for real. Go to Bigger Pockets and type in who has connects with D.R. Horton and X Market, or who has connects with D.R. Horton. Go to Facebook groups, local Facebook groups. Someone in your market has a connection to D.R. Horton. I promise you. You just have to go find them. If you're in a local market, and you're in a bigger market, I should say, maybe not even a bigger market, but if D.R. Horton's that relevant in the market you're in and you're local where you could drive, most D.R. Hortons have local offices. Roll up to that. Hey, who can I talk to? And put yourself out there. Because ultimately, shaking hands and making eye contact is the best way to build a relationship.
Huge.
It elevates your business to a whole nother level is when you can shake someone's hand in person and they can see you're a real human. I also wanted to add, and I'm going to get back to Zero to Deal real quick. I did want to add, though, real quick, contacted agents. So like Aisha mentioned earlier, we do off market. We do all direct to seller. And so I say that, and we actually just did a pocket listing, which is essentially off market, but we did have it through agents. So agents are going to use what's called a vacant land contract. It's essentially the same as your regular real estate contract. It just has less verbiage because land's land, and there's not like usually loan contingencies, and all this kind of stuff. And so speaking with buyers, actually, let me read the question. Sorry, I'm all over the place too. Also, I have been speaking with buyers and I have contacted agents with expired listings. How do I structure that contract if the agent brings the seller? Just like you would a direct to seller contract, just like you would on a residential contract. Send an offer sheet. If you get to a point where you verbally agree on a number, or at least you're close enough to where you feel it's necessary to put something in writing, send that agent an offer sheet, which will have your price, your terms, and all that fun stuff. And it's important to mention, and I'll throw this in real quick, which we talked about last episode. We do a minimum feasibility on lots for 30 days. Very rarely have we gone under 30-day feasibility.
Feasibility is inspection period, FYI.
Inspection period. And so I'm not going to go, we talked about that in the last episode, but just know when you're working with an agent on land deal, if it's an infill lot, if you're talking big multifamily, which if this is also for a D.R. Horton situation, it's a 6 to a 12-month feasibility period. And I don't mean to burst your bubble, but usually when neighborhood subdivision developments, there's a lot that has to go into it. So if you're reaching out to D.R. Horton for a potential subdivision play or tract play, just know it's a 6 to 12 month feasibility period or inspection period. But if you're reaching out, I do want to mention this last thing, and I could keep going. I love this business. So if you're reaching out to D.R. Horton to build one house, that's not what they do.
Don't do that. Yeah.
They're never going to get back to you on that, no matter how much you bug them, just because that's not their business model. They build a lot of homes very quickly. And so if you're reaching out to them for one house, you're never going to get a hold of them. But if you're reaching out to them because you have 30 acres under contract next to a Walmart and a Chick-fil-A, now you're in business. Now,
got to be next to that Chick-fil-A, though. Hey, real quick, expired listings. Out of curiosity, and we can talk about this later, but you're speaking with buyers and have contacted agents with expired listings. So I'm assuming that you pulled a list maybe and you're reaching out to agents. But my curiosity is, why are you calling agents if the listing is expired? Call that seller directly if you can. Like, cut out that agent, because here's the thing: that listing expired, it kind of means the agent either didn't do their job right, you know what I mean? Maybe doesn't have a good relationship with that seller. So just something to keep in mind. It's easy. Sure, it's easy to look at the expired listings on Zillow. You got the agent, you got the phone number. Yeah, you may have to do a little digging to get straight to that builder. But you're going to save yourself $5 to $10,000. I'd do a little digging. So, anyways, let's get back to Zero to Deal, and then we got a wrap.
Okay, Zero to Deal. So I will be really frank with you on this. One, we don't do sub-2 with lands or potentially a pad split. And so I've never even personally.
Can you read the question for the people that aren't?
Yes, sorry. So Zero to Deal asked, how to sub-2 with pad split? I'm assuming, and I could be wrong, so if you're still here, please comment. But I'm assuming a pad split means potentially a subdivide play, or two lots next to each other. a double lot that's going to be split. I've never heard the term pad split, to be honest with you. And so that's just not my verbiage. So if you could point me in the right direction, that would be great. But sub 2 with land is also something I've never heard of. I do know seller financing. We have offered on deals with seller financing, which is typically pretty basic, your standard where they own it free and clear, X% of a down payment, a 30-year term, 5-year balloon, or we do a 1-year balloon, with a 6% interest or 5% interest, whatever it is. And so I wish I could give you a better answer, but I'm not even going to try to pull stuff out of my butt because I don't know much about sub-2ing.
We're going to find out, though.
We are going to find out. I don't know much about sub-2ing on land specifically, and I also don't 100% know what pad split means. So if you could clarify that for me, that would be absolutely phenomenal. And again, if it means subdivide, please tell me, because then we can go to town. But
Googling pad split frantically right now.
Yeah. And so 0 to deal, I guess message us on Instagram, Facebook, because I want to ask you more about this, to be honest. So
I think pad split is a software. I see a video with Pace in it. Says, join us as we explore potential real estate investment property in Phoenix, Arizona with the pad split crew.
So there you go. There you go. I hear pad and I think of build pad. So that's what builders say. So yeah. I was probably way off. But okay, cool. Well, still, I would like to learn more about that. And before we wrap this, I just want to point out that right here is the perfect example of when you're going to someone like, and this is Lamarius Thomas's question. They request for actual, and this is referring to D.R. Horton. They request for actual land details, but I don't have any deals as of yet to market them. Again, big tract home builders, if you're not just going to really be able to go to them and say, hey, what are you guys looking for? They're not really want to spend that amount of time. Now, again, is another reason why we focus primarily on single infill lots and working with smaller builders, is because we can go to them and ask these questions rather than D.R. Horton. And I think that's probably and I don't want to say that's probably, I would assume a lot of people don't get into land because they think it's all subdivisions for building. And that's not the case. And so there's a lot of opportunity, and spec homes is where it's made, and infill lots. Remember that, Lamarius. So go to town on infill lots with spec home builders and you'll make a lot of money. But cool. Well, we went over time, but let's wrap this sucker up.
Over deliver, right? Under promise and over deliver. That's our goal. My kids are yelling at me to feed them lunch, and so I've got to roll. But Tanner, where can people, the good people of the earth, the Wholesale Elite fam, where can they find out more information about land? Is there a course? Is there a free course maybe that's done by a gentleman in Arizona? I don't know. Hey, what do you know?
Yeah. So if you guys want to learn more in depth, I don't want to say more in depth, just really quickly get the basics of land, wholesaling land, investing in land, go check out mavroacademy.com. That's one of our good friends, Anthony Pappas.
It's free.
It's free, by the way. And there's videos. It's insightful. Go check that out. Anthony's a beast. He's in Arizona. Amazing human. Just a cool dude. So if you're looking to learn a little bit more about land, and he'll break it down in a little more detail, specifically of stuff we haven't gone over yet, go check out mavroacademy.com, and I promise your needs will be met. Absolutely.
Guys, this is exciting. Another one. We did our second live, Tanner. This is so cool.
Right.
I'm really digging the having the ability to communicate with you guys directly. And so that's awesome. Lamarius, thank you so much for your questions and for hanging in there. And for sticking it out and really engaging and asking good questions. And so 0 to deal. Same with you. Shout out to Lady and the Chef. our Setco Services team who joined us earlier today. Guys, next week, again, we're going to come back and we're going to talk more acquisition stuff. We're going to talk acquiring the land deal. How do you acquire? What do you say? What do you use? What's the difference? We're going to go into some school on that one. So I'm pretty excited about that one. And yeah, we'll see you next week, guys. Tanner, you got anything else?
Nope. Just if you guys could like, subscribe, whatever, that whole slingo,
smash that like button.
Whatever all the YouTube people say, do that for us because it helps. And we just want to keep providing value, or at least do our best. And again, if you're looking for someone that's just probably a few steps ahead of you in terms of 1, building a company, and 2, wholesaling land, and someone you can truly relate with, that's us. So if you like what we're doing, like, subscribe, and wherever a button's going to be, whatever anything's going to be, click it. So that's all I got.
All right, guys. We'll see you next time. Peace.